guys, welcome back to House Church. This week we start with a new character from our Bible stories. His name is Noah. Have you heard of Noah before? I hope you have. Noah has some exciting news and a lot of stuff happens to him in just a few short chapters in Genesis. Before we get started, let's see what you remember. Do you remember who we talked about before? Just a week ago and all the weeks before that in House Church lessons? We talked about Samuel. We learned about him from 1 Samuel, and he had several chapters written about him and when he grew up, when he was a little boy, then when he lived with Eli, and then when he picked King Saul, and then when he picked King David. Do you remember some things about King David? Where did he come from? He came from a big family. His dad's name was Jesse, and he had lots of brothers. But Samuel knew that David was the special one and would be the next king because of what was in his heart. And Samuel had to do a very good job of listening to God and listening to what God wanted him to do and who he wanted to talk to. So that's going to be very important when we start talking about Noah. Our story about Noah comes from Genesis. It's the first book in the Bible. In our Bibles, it starts with the book of Genesis. It's the very first book in the Bible. Genesis chapter 1, God created the whole world. Can you hold your hands up like this and say, God created the whole world? God created the whole world. So that's what happened in Genesis 1. And then in Genesis 2, that's where we see Adam and Eve. God starts making people. And the first ones were Adam and Eve. Then today, we're going to start in chapter 6. That's with Noah and his family. Let me tell you just a little bit about what happens in Genesis 6. Starting in verse 5, God sees how bad things had gotten on earth. He wasn't happy with the guys, with the people. He wasn't happy with the animals on the ground or with the birds in the sky. He just wasn't happy with what they were doing. They were being violent and mean to each other. Things were crazy and chaotic. But Noah was just a little bit different. He was kind of a lot different. He was walking in the favor of God. That meant that he was listening to God, like Samuel had done, and that he was wanting to do God's will. That's what made him very important in God's story, that Noah was doing God's will. One day, God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of this special kind of wood and make rooms in it. So Noah started listening to God and doing exactly what he said to do. One big word for that is obey. Noah was obeying God. God had told him to build this ark, and it was going to be huge. I don't have a huge ark, but this is an ark that we can play with. But God told Noah to make it out of wood, so he made the bottom part out of wood to make a certain kind of roof on the ark, so he had to put that. It had to be a certain size. He told Noah exactly what size to make it. And then he said that it needed to have a door and a window at the top. So that's exactly what Noah did. I want to read to you out of one of my favorite little books. It's called My Favorite Bible Storybook for Early Readers. Many years passed after Adam and Eve first disobeyed God. There were many people on earth now, but the people forgot all about God. They fought with each other. They were selfish and mean. Noah and his family were the only people who loved God. God tried to get the people to remember him. He wanted them to obey him and love him, but no one paid any attention to him. God was sorry that he had even made people. He decided to empty the earth and start all over. God warned Noah about his plan. A big flood is coming. He said, I want you to build a really big boat, an ark. I will tell you exactly how to make it. God knew Noah would be safe in the ark. Noah always tried to obey God. He got right to work, measuring, hammer, and nailing. He built the ark just the way God told him. His neighbors made fun of him for building it, but Noah did not care. He just kept on working. When the ark was finished, God sent animals to go inside it. He sent 2 of every kind of animal, a boy and a girl. He wanted them to be safe from the flood too. Noah would make sure that they would have food and water. The animals marched into the ark. Noah and his family went inside the ark too. Then God himself closed the big wooden door. Noah's friends and neighbors stood outside and laughed at him. And that's where our story finishes today. But I just want you to remember that Noah obeyed God, even when other people were making fun of him, even when it didn't really make sense. It didn't talk about that it had been raining a lot or that things were going on that they would need this giant ship, this boat, this thing called the ark. But Noah listened and obeyed God. Thanks for watching House Church this week, and we'll see you next week.